Silence fell in the hospital room as Dr. Henry delivered the final diagnosis. Spinal cord injury, permanent paralysis. Viven stared blankly at her legs. Her mother looked away, unable to accept this imperfection. Corbin, her fiancé, let go of her hand and left. Only Carter, a single father she barely knew, remained, whispering, "If you can't walk, I'll be your legs." 3 days earlier, Viven had been in complete control. She ran a successful consulting firm, wore tailored suits, and had a perfectly planned wedding. Control was her identity. Corbin, her fiancé, seemed perfect. An investment banker with expensive watches and a leased Mercedes. Her mother, Bernice, adored him, measuring success by appearances and proudly dropping Viven's name at every social gathering. Carter Hayes lived a different reality. His hands were chapped, his life a constant struggle. His manager, Otis, constantly reminded him how easily he could be replaced. The night everything changed. Carter had $43 in his wallet. Gwen's fever spiked, forcing them to the ER. $43 meant antibiotics, not groceries. Another week of rice. They met in the, Carter and Gwen were waiting when paramedics wheeled and Viven unconscious. Carter watched, a witness to tragedy. He saw her reach out, saw Corbin hang back on his phone. Another man, Bernie, approached Corbin, whispering frantically. Carter, accustomed to being invisible, caught fragments. Insurance documentation. Make sure she doesn't remember. Handle the police report. What about the brake line? That last phrase chilled Carter. He'd worked in auto repair. Brake lines didn't fail randomly. He tucked the observation away, focusing on Gwen and the bills. The next morning, the diagnosis shattered Viven's world. Bernice couldn't face her daughter's new reality. Corbin retreated, viewing Viven as a bad investment, promising to call later. He never did. When the social worker, Helen, needed signatures to avoid transferring Viven to a state facility far away, Bernice and Corbin were unavailable, prioritizing appearances and urgent business. Helen, desperate, locked eyes with Carter, who was still waiting for Gwen's follow-up. "Can you sign as a temporary contact?" Helen asked. "Just until proper family arrangements are made." Carter looked past the wheelchair, seeing the same terror he'd felt 4 years ago when his wife, Matilda, died. He'd been working a graveyard shift and hadn't even made it to the ER in time. He saw someone drowning while those who should have loved her turned away. He signed. Minutes later, Otis fired him via text for being late. Carter had lost his income, but looking at Viven, he knew he'd made the right choice. He'd figure something out. Always. The days blurred into a nightmare for Viven. The wheelchair was a constant reminder of her new reality. Corbin visited once, bringing expensive orchids and suggesting they postpone the wedding, his eyes avoiding the wheelchair. He left a power of attorney document, framed as a practical measure. Bernice visited daily, her presence a burden, suggesting they move Viven to her house to keep things private. Carter brought warm soup and a soft blanket Gwen had chosen. Healy soon offered practical help and treated Viven like a person, not a tragedy. Gwen visited, decorating Viven's wheelchair with ribbons and bells. Her innocent acceptance, a balm to Viven's soul. Physical therapy was brutal. Viven's first session ended in humiliation as she failed to lift herself between parallel bars. When the therapist tried to help, Viven screamed, "Don't touch me. I don't need anyone's pity." That night, Viven studied the power of attorney documents Corbin had left. Her legal mind understood the implications. If she signed, Corbin would control her life. An exhausted part of her wanted to surrender control, but a deeper instinct warned her. Carter researched Viven's care obsessively, learning about wheelchair accessibility and pressure sore prevention. He helped with personal care with clinical efficiency and respect, never offering false platitudes. Gwen became the bridge between Viven and Carter, her artless questions cutting through the awkwardness. Carter built a wheelchair ramp and installed grab bars in Viven's bathroom. Using the last of his money from selling Matilda's wedding ring, neighbors whispered, and someone sent Corbin a photo of Carter and Viven in the park. Corbin showed up, sowing seeds of doubt in Viven's mind about Carter's motives. Viven, vulnerable and fearful, began to question Carter's dedication. The confrontation was inevitable. Viven accused Carter of being with her for money. Stunned, Carter didn't defend himself. Viven, about to sign Corbin's power of attorney documents, was stopped by Gwen's tearful plea not to send Carter away. Viven realized she was attacking the one person who had proven trustworthy. She apologized. Carter finally opened up about Matilda's death, his guilt over choosing work, over being with her. He also shared his observations from including the suspicious whispers between Corbin and Bernie, and the state of Viven's brake line. Viven, a lawyer, began to investigate. She noticed discrepancies in the police report and missing pages. She started rebuilding herself physically, refusing to be a victim. With Carter's help, she gathered evidence. A recording from a former tow truck employee revealing Bernie's payment to silence him. Viven's own medical records showing brake fluid in her blood, and records of Corbin's payment to a records clerk. Corbin, realizing Viven was becoming a threat, escalated his actions. He tried to intimidate Viven, broke into Carter's apartment, and filed a false child welfare complaint against Carter. He even had Carter arrested on fabricated charges. Viven fought back. She presented her evidence to a criminal defense attorney and the police. The investigating officer, Ronnie, cracked under pressure, admitting Corbin paid him to cover up the crime. Carter was released, and the charges were dropped. Viven returned home exhausted, only to find Corbin waiting for her. But Carter arrived just in time, stopping Corbin until police arrived. Corbin, Bernie, and Ronnie were convicted. Carter's record was cleared. Viven reclaimed control of her life and finances, discovering she was wealthier without Corbin. Viven returned to work, building her consulting firm remotely and starting a nonprofit to help others with wheelchair accessibility. Carter found a job at a rehabilitation center, his experience with Viven making him invaluable. They formed an accidental family, bound by shared trauma and choice. Viven realized that healing wasn't about walking again, but about reclaiming her life and her right to be loved. Carter hadn't saved her from disability, but he had stood by her while she saved herself.